Welcome to my first reading vlog for Aurelium Magical Readathon. This is one of my favourite yearly readathons and I love how customizable it is. I love how much lore there is, how much community, and I'm always really excited to take part. This year my character Ula, who is a dwarf, has decided to change her calling up slightly. She was doing demonology, but after doing the lore quest, I decided that she'd had a bit of a crisis and decided to shift her focus to Aldean excavation, which is sort of like an archaeologist. That's going to be her main focus, but she's also going to be taking classes in story weaving and necromancy as bonus asides. If I don't get all the books for those two callings, it's absolutely fine. I'm just adding them in for a bit of flavour, since the Aldean excavator calling doesn't have quite as many books as I would like in a month. My logic behind this is that she would go out into the Aldean wilderness, excavate old extinct creatures, and use her necromancy skill to bring them back to life, hear their stories, and write them down using her story weaving technique. For this vlog, I currently have all of my books to pick from, and there were a lot on this month's reading list. I have a couple of books that aren't for Magical Readathon, and but came up in my TBR Tailspin or our buddy reads. I'm gonna keep those separate, and I've put everything that's left over into a TBR jar. If you want to see that full list of everything I plan to try and get to this month, I will link my September TBR down in the description below. Now, I don't have a dinosaur mug or anything that really fits with that Aldean excavator, so I've decided to go with my little sea monster mug, which is an octopus mug. And our first pick is An Uncommon Betrothal, which is by Johannes T. Evans. This is a historical romance. Alexis Fox, an introverted academic and polio survivor, is naturally quite sad when the longtime butler of his household, the man who all but raised him, retires. He is not at all prepared for the old man's exceedingly attractive and painfully tempting nephew. Unbeknownst to Alexis, his old butler chose Henry Sutton, hoping the two of them might marry their interests together, and the gentleman is as suspicious as he is entranced when the new butler comes to him with talks of a secret marriage between them. This is set in 1927, primarily in West Sussex, England. It features themes of disability, chronic pain, piercing and tattoos, loneliness and isolation, bodily autonomy, class dynamics, a butler-gentleman relationship, joyful non-monogamy, and casual sex. So I've enjoyed so many of Johannes T. Evans' short stories. I think I've read maybe one or two of his novel length books, but I really haven't read a lot in that longer form style. So I am really excited about this one. It sounds a little bit marriage of conveniency, which ties in with that marriage of convenience, arranged marriage, fake dating sphere that I really tend to like. Tends to be my favourite romantic genre. So for pick number 2, I'm gonna go with this one. And we are doing Board Gay Werewolf. And I do actually have the physical copy of this one. Brian, an aimless slacker, works doubles at his shift job, forgets to clean his room, and lays about with his friends Nick and Darby. He's been struggling to manage his transition to adulthood almost as much as his monthly transitions to a werewolf. However, he's not great at the whole werewolf thing, and his murderous slip-ups have caught the attention of Tyler, a millennial were mentor determined to take the mythology world by storm. Tyler has got a plan, and weirdly his self-help punditry actually encourages Brian to shape up and to stop accidentally marking out guys who ghosted him on Grindr as potential monthly victims. But as Brian gets closer to Tyler's pack and alienated from Nick and Darby, he realises that Tyler's expansion plans are much more nefarious than a little lupine enlightenment. I picked this one up purely because I thought the title was brilliant and I really liked the cover. I probably suspected there would be a bit more romance than it sounds like there is, but this would actually be a really nice vibe in contrast to the almost purely romance that we're going to get in An Uncommon Betrothal. Third and most likely final pick for the vlog is going to be this one in the middle. And I'll put the mug away. And, oh, bumble finger upside down. And that is Murder Buys a T-shirt, which I also have a physical copy of. Murder Buys a T-shirt by Christy Fifield. Gloria Martine has inherited her uncle's Florida souvenir shop, one stuffed with collectibles, mementos of times gone by, and ghosts, who, like her customers, refuse to let go of the past. But things take an even more unexpected turn when a local football hero dies far too suddenly and suspiciously. Now Glory has to uncover the truth before someone makes her history. That doesn't really tell you much about this cozy, but I love cozy mysteries, and I've been needing a new series to start. I picked this one up specifically because it is set in Florida, and that's going to fit one of the monthly challenges on my Golden Girl Readathon that I'm doing all year. Those are going to be the three books that I think I'm going to try and tackle first in this vlog. In terms of my Aurelian studies, that is going to get me my first level, my O in Inscription for an uncommon betrothal. That was to pick a book that had a number of letters that were a prime number. My O in Demonology with Board Game Werewolf, which was to pick a book with an emotion in the title. And my O in Animal Studies, which was to pick a debut book. So I'm going to start all three and I will let you know when I get about halfway in one of them. So I got myself these kind of spooky, cute, Halloweeny ghost candle holder. And I'm not saying it's gay, but I'm saying it's gay. And it feels very much like, do you remember the tag yourself memes? Which one are you? Because I think very much I am either the lime one on the end or the white one on the other end. Because both of them have that, like, we're not hanging out with the other kids vibe. One of them is screaming into the void, and the other one has no thoughts, head empty vibe very strongly. Hopefully, I'm going to remember to buy candles and it will get lit during one of these vlogs. So we are starting with Murder Buys a T-shirt. And since that cover is quite glary, I'm just going to stick an image here. In this, we're following Gloria, who runs the antique shop. She also has a best friend, Karen, who is a journalist. And the two of them are in a little dining club quartet with Ernie and Philippe, so some queer representation there. And honestly, so far the food is... I'm not saying the mystery's bad, but the food is top tier. Their food club has meant to have been running for a while, but recently they've decided to narrow their focus and really learn more about Southern cuisine since they're based in Florida. And so I am getting to hear all about the Southern cuisine and it sounds so good. And there are a bunch of recipes in the back of the book that I will never make, but I will be taking notes. Kevin, the high school star athlete, has died in a drink driving accident. While it could just be an accident, Glory doesn't think so. There are some great suspects involved, from the team football coach to the owner of a car dealership, which is where Kevin was working, and who uses his sponsorship of the football team to kind of up his own social standing. And also with some of the other athletes, both people that are currently on the team and people that have been on the team in the past. Now, the main reason that Christy isn't falling for the idea that this was an accident is that her parrot told her. Yeah, she has a parrot called Bluebeard who is hilarious. He swears up a storm and has moments where the things he says sound oddly relevant. And he has told her that it wasn't an accident. Christy thinks the parrot is actually possessed by her dead uncle Louis, who is the person that passed the antique shop down to her. She's never really known Louis. He died before she was an adult, and her own parents died in a car crash when she was about 18. So she doesn't have a lot of family history to draw on, and now she's investigating that along with Kevin's death. There's a lot of really interesting stuff there about grief and how this latest car accident is making Glory reevaluate her own past. It's adding a little bit of darkness that I don't usually find in my cozies and making the case feel quite personal. The haunting aspect, I had expected the book to feel a little more Halloweeny, a little more spooky. We have the haunted parrot in an antique shop, but I'm not getting that kind of dusty, gloomy vibe that I was expecting. But then the Florida setting makes that a little bit difficult. I'm interested to see how all of it comes together, and I personally right now have no favourite suspect, which is unusual for me. I am just here for the vibes, I'm along for the ride, and I'm gonna see who Glory picks and whether she's right. And so I am finished with Murder Buys a T-shirt by Christy Fifield. This was a really good cozy mystery. One of the things that I find most important in cozies, especially the first cozy in a series, is that the protagonist, the sleuth, and the setting, usually a small town, are really, really well established. That I want to visit the town, I want to live in this world. The mystery, in a lot of ways, especially in the first one, is really, really secondary. It's not my biggest reason for reading. As a series goes on, the characters become more important and the mystery becomes more relevant. But at first, I would always prefer that the author takes the time to really immerse me in the setting over an overly convoluted mystery. And this one does do that. We spend a lot more time setting the scene of who Glory is and maybe some threads that might come through later in the series. We have that food group with her three best friends, which I love, and I'm really hoping we're going to get lots more food and lots more recipes in the sequels. We also set up her kind of background tragedy in that her parents both died when she was relatively young. She doesn't know a lot about her family history because of that, and she has a lot of trauma still to unpack around, especially car crashes, but also I'm imagining grief and loss, which, if she's going to stumble over a lot of bodies, is something that's maybe going to pop up now and again. She also has the mystery of her Uncle Louis, who died and left her the store. She has her suspicions that Louis is possessing the parrot, Bluebeard, and towards the end, we definitely get the hint that that's correct. I think it'll be interesting to see whether or not more of Louis's past, more of his history becomes relevant. Since he is the haunted angle in the haunted souvenir shop, you would hope that Uncle Louis, Bluebeard the parrot, and maybe some of their past will feature in the background of some of the mysteries. The pacing on this one is maybe a little slower than some people might like, just because it's going to not focus as much on that mystery straight away. But personally, that really worked for me, and I'm definitely going to be continuing with the series. As far as I know, there are currently 5 books, so I'll probably pick them up as soon as I get a chance. I've reached round about the halfway point of Board Gay Werewolf and thought it would be time to give you guys an update. The description so far has been pretty bang on point. Brian, he's the worst werewolf in the world. Not in the sense of being useless at it, although he is, but he's vaguely incompetent in every way. Apart from the one way you would want him to be incompetent, which is actually killing people, Brian he kills people. He has no control over himself. And in his real life, he is working as a waiter in a job that he doesn't seem to enjoy. Then he bumps into Tyler. Tyler is your typical tech bro, entrepreneur, disruptor type character, and he recruits Brian to a coaching system that's going to kind of mentor men through economics, through business, through relationship strategies, and through potentially, if they are werewolves, through their changes. It has a combination of MLM and men's rights. Brian has been pretty swept up though, and he does seem to be getting something out of Tyler's kind of tutelage. He has started to work out at the gym more, he's getting more control over his transformations, and he just generally seems like he feels like he's improving as a person. However, just as we're getting to this middle point, we're also seeing that his relationships with his friends, the people he works with at the restaurant, at the bar, those are starting to take a turn. He's snappy, he's rude to the customers, he's never cared about this job, but it's becoming more and more obvious that he's not even willing to put on a front. On the social side of it, he is brushing off more and more of their nights out, and he is isolating himself and pulling closer and closer to Tyler. It definitely feels like Tyler has a bigger goal in mind and he's using Brian to get there. Brian is doing all the work. He's the one watching the Marie Kondo videos and plagiarizing them for content. He's the one writing all the blog posts, working through mantras that they can post on Twitter every day. He is very much the dog's body of this relationship. and I'm interested to see where Tyler is going with it. I had thought that this would have a romance in it, which is entirely me. So far, we don't have a romance. I will now be surprised if we do, because it's 50% of the way through. None of the characters we have currently been introduced to seem like good romantic matches. And if there is a romance, that person would need to kind of appear right now for me to buy it. So I think this is more just about Brian and Tyler, and potentially maybe Brian uncovering more to what is going on with the pack, which is Tyler's little project. It is reading a little bit more slowly than I thought it would. It's not a chunky book, and the chapters are fairly long, but I'm intrigued, and it's definitely something different from all the other books on my TBR, so I'm interested to keep going with it.
Elastic goes, they expand and shrink. Memories blur faster than you think. One moment's forever, the next just a blink. In this elastic time, we sink or swim. So hold on tight to now, 'cause time will wait for you. This elastic.
And we are halfway through An Uncommon Betrothal by Johannes T. Evans. This follows two men. We have Alexis, who is the son in a relatively wealthy family, think Downton Abbey, and the family butler, who has basically been his paternal figure, has just retired and ceded his job to his nephew, Harry. There's a romance angle here because Reginald, the original butler, thinks these two would be great together, and he's basically set them up. Alexis is deeply unsure about this, and up to about the 40%, that was the dynamic that was very much prevalent. Alexis has some physical disabilities caused by polio as a child. He has a lot of problems with his legs, with moving, and he's also just really shy and socially awkward. He doesn't really leave the house. He is a scholar of, I think, ancient Greek, and does most of his work by kind of letter. So he doesn't need to interact with a lot of people. He doesn't enjoy interacting with a lot of people. And when forced to, he becomes incredibly grumpy. Whereas Harry, the butler, is much more outgoing. He's much more confident. In the past, he has served in the army. And I think naturally that has given him a type of confidence and a self assuredness that really helps to balance Alexis out. That said, for that first kind of 40% of the book, we are watching Alexis be attracted to Harry but want to keep his distance. While Harry is a bit more flirty and seems fond of Alexis, he wants to look after him. I wouldn't say that I'm feeling a massive amount of romantic attachment from either character, even up to where I am at the 50%. This is a slow burn. There's definitely a sexual attraction between the two of them. There's a kind of aesthetic attraction between the two of them. That's not in doubt. But from Alexis's point of view, that wariness has kind of tainted his romantic attachment, I think, and he's still too unsure. That I don't really feel that coming through. Harry, what I am getting coming through in the emotional side is more a fondness. It's more a kind of a caregiving and a wanting to help Alexis, wanting to help bring him out of his shell. It's more than a friendship feeling, but it's not, I would say, on either end deeply romantic yet. I do obviously expect it's going to be, but it's a really complex dynamic. There is that kind of employer employee thing going on as well, obviously, and both our characters are aware of that power dynamic. So all of these factors make the relationship feel very multifaceted. It's not a swoony romance, but I do think it's going to be a really satisfying one once the two of them hit their stride with each other. So I have reached the end of Board Game Werewolf by Tony Santorella, and I really did enjoy this one. I had my moments of doubt, especially in those, I want to say, opening 8 or so chapters. I started out on audiobook, and once I switched to the hardback, everything smoothed out for me. It's not that the audiobook narrator is a bad narrator. I had nothing against the audiobook narrator. He was great, but for some reason this book just worked better for me in print. Overall, my main takeaway from this one is that if you are looking for a romance, this doesn't do that. There are a couple of what I suppose we would call spicy scenes, but they are very much impersonal interactions that show probably how badly Brian's life is going. So even calling them spicy seems a bit reductive. Your mileage may vary. There were a couple of reveals towards the end that I thought were really interesting. There was some interesting commentary about kind of masculine culture, toxic male culture, male loneliness. There were some interesting points made about the different social structures of wolves and other animals and how humans have maybe co opted those things and misconstrued them. And also, it was just fun. Despite all the masculine posturing, the looking at these different subcultures, this is a book just to have fun with. And I did. This one is a fairly quick read once you get into it, and it'd be really good for anyone that wants werewolves in their life but doesn't necessarily want the paranormal wolf shifter, why choose type of thing. If you're looking for werewolves that are just werewolves without necessarily adding in a romance angle, then this gave you a bit more of werewolves. Not quite horror, but looking at it in a less romantic and romanticized way. It was a good time. It ticks off my demonology O qualification for my necromancer career, and that is to read a book that had an emotion in the title. The last book that I read during this vlog was An Uncommon Betrothal by Johannes T. Evans. This one covers my inscription subject at O level for my story weaver career. And the prompt was to read a book with a prime number. The number of letters in the title had to be a prime number. I've read quite a lot of Johannes T. Evans' short stories. I mean, really, really short stories. I bought a whole bunch of them, and I've been reading them for various, Face Off Weekend, Gala Weekend, in the various competitive readathons. And I really enjoy his short stories. I was a little bit unsure how I was going to feel. This is novel length. And this one is a very slow burn, and I personally thought there were some pacing issues towards the end. I kind of feel like we barreled towards the ending and we stayed at the same level of pacing and of tension. I didn't feel that we really got a big finale moment. I didn't feel that we got a moment where we were unsure, where there was something the character had to overcome. There was no kind of dark night of the soul moment where I would say the character was really forced to look deeper, to dig deeper, to push past the obstacles they were facing. That was my only downside. I really enjoyed the historical aspect. It's got very Downton Abbey vibes. If you enjoyed Downton Abbey or Jeeves and Wooster, this one's probably for you. It had a lot of looking at war and war injuries, war trauma, PTSD, the survivors' guilt, the ones that come back. All of that came through Harry and Harry's friends at different points. We also then, through Alexis, got to see polio as a condition, which is one of those things that obviously in its time was really prevalent and has basically been eradicated. So it's interesting to see how it would have impacted someone's life if they got past the worst of it. Using polio, we get a really good look at mobility issues. We see chronic pain represented. We see fatigue represented. And then we kind of see how those two things come up against each other. Alexis's issues and Harry's issues, and we see them work together to build something. There's lots of very interesting stuff happening in this historical moment, and Evans really deals with that with a really deft way. The book incorporates all these things without feeling like it's overly researched or overly presenting you with facts. It's just all tied really nicely through the romance, which I really admired. It's not my favourite Evans work. I think I have enjoyed some of his short stories more, where he's had to be more concise, but it definitely was by no means a bad romance book. I think it is definitely one for anyone that has enjoyed queer historical fiction. I think you're going to get a lot out of it. I think I gave this one about a 4, and I would definitely try more of Evans' full-length books as and when they release. So overall, these 3 books were a really good batch for me. I did have a couple of moments of doubt mostly with Board Gay Werewolf at the start, and then a little bit with An Uncommon Betrothal in that kind of third act area. But overall, it was a good set. I think it was maybe a 3, a 3.5, and then a 4. And I definitely think I would read from any of those authors again quite happily. So Ula has taken 3 of her exams and still hasn't managed to set anything for her main excavationist career. I'm hoping that next week, however I decide to narrow down my TBR, I'm going to hopefully get in some of those excavationist books just to make sure I get to them. That is the subject where I'll consider this semester finished if I read the excavationist books. The Story Weaver and the Necromancer are optional extras, so I might need to start thinking about maybe focusing my reading a little more when I pick up my next book. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, I would really appreciate if you could like it and maybe even subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of my Aurelium reading as we go through the month. I'd love if you could leave a comment if you have any thoughts on any of these books, and also if you're doing Magical Readathon, let me know how you're getting on. What calling did your character pick and how are they doing with their exams? If you don't have anything else to say, then leave me a wolf emoji in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.